Hello and welcome back to season 3 of Beau My God. I'm your host, Beau Bradley. My pronouns are he and they. It is now April of 2022, if you can believe it, and we have some great topics lined up for today. But before we get into it, I'm going to briefly recap what we talked about last time on Beau My God. Last episode, we rung in the new season talking about Transgender Day of Visibility. That's March 31st, if you missed it. We chatted about the L in the acronym LGBTQIA, bringing back the queer alphabet. And we chatted about what this upcoming season will look like, what to look forward to for the Beau My God Season 3 launch party in Seattle, which we'll recap today. And I know I told you this last time, but for those listening in for the first time, every episode this season will be uploaded on YouTube with or without video content. There may be a lag from when the audio episode is published and when it gets uploaded to YouTube, but I'm doing what I can. I'm one person. And as a reminder, we're really trying to make this information accessible. So if there's somewhere you want to watch or listen and you can't find it, let us know. So, all right, before we move on, let's take a moment and ask you to subscribe, rate us on your favorite podcast platform, follow us on social media. This podcast is all about education, community, and visibility. So we need your help to continue to share this platform with your community, your LGBTQIA plus friends, peers, family, and allies. And I especially need your help sharing it with the people who don't understand our community, but might need this information anyways. So today we're going to be joined by our very first guest for this season 3, a true fan favorite here on BMG. I say that kind of jokingly, but honestly, I've gotten the best feedback when Rose joined. So why not have them join us again? So for those who don't know, Rose Bradley, they are my spouse, my best friend. Rose has a background as a first responder, a degree in psychology, and is honestly just an all-around great human. Rose is non-binary and brings a great perspective with that, and their pronouns are they, them. Welcome, Rose.
Thank you. You flatter me.
It's my job. We're married. Now, I want to jump right into the meat of this episode, and that will be dun da da da. Current events. This portion of the podcast is dedicated to discussing anti-trans and LGBTQIA plus legislation, current topics in the news, and other pop culture or lifestyle events affecting the queer community. Now, we literally just returned from a week away across the country in Washington, D.C. for a friend's wedding. And every time we fly, I just think about what it's like to travel as a transgender, gender diverse human in today's world. And just talking about domestic travel, not even talking about safety concerns or traveling in places where it's illegal to be trans or gender nonconforming or even just queer in general. I just think traveling can be so difficult for anyone, really. And I mean, in traveling on a plane, it's literally like traveling in a tube through the sky. So it has its own set of anxieties and stressors. But I think that it's just a little extra for those who are trans or gender nonconforming, non-binary.
Yeah.
Especially with the identification process that you have to go through initially. And
yeah, just even, I mean, security alone is like my biggest concern. But I mean, first of all, there's never a good time to travel ever. Like flights are always at awful times. Now, you may be asking, what does our travel have to do with current events? But recently, the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, as most people are familiar, you know, those folks at the airport in the blue uniforms ask you to take out your laptops, empty your pockets, blah, blah, blah. I know that's a really oversimplified explanation of their tedious jobs, but I bet that gives you a better idea what I'm talking about. Anyways, the TSA just recently made a pretty cool announcement. Their exact language is TSA recognizes the concerns that some members of the transgender, non-binary, gender nonconforming traveling public have with screening technology and certain security screening procedures at our nation's security checkpoints. TSA is committed to ensuring all travelers are treated with respect and dignity. Screening is conducted without regard to a person's race, color, sex, gender identity, national origin, religion, or disability. Now, the best part of this is that they're taking tangible, actionable steps towards making traveling feel more safe for folks. One of those efforts is that beginning this month in April 2022, if you are applying or renewing for your application for a TSA pre-check, you can select M for male or F for female, regardless of your sex assigned at birth and regardless of the gender designated on your supporting documentation. So this is a huge step, just allowing someone like me who hasn't or you too, Rose, I guess, who hasn't updated their gender marker to utilize a gender when traveling that matches themselves versus their driver's license. I think that's, wow, what a step. Obviously, it's limited to those renewing pre-check, and it's not applicable for general security screening, but they are also working to include an X gender marker option on this application, in their words, to ensure that the program accurately reflects traveler gender and keeps pace with identity documents that offer the X gender marker option. And they estimate that this deliverable of the X gender marker option will be rolled out by the end of 2022. So that's a good first step. Again, it's still binary as of now, but the fact that you don't have to update your driver's license necessarily, which costs money and time, and typically taking time off of work to go do it, yeah, that's going to be really beneficial.
Hugely.
Another area of change that TSA is assessing is on their actual screening process technology. And so they use advanced imaging technology, also known as AIT, or a walk-through metal detector, and or pat downs. That is their 3 current ways that TSA screens. And their AIT screening is the machine you walk into where you put your feet on the yellow footprint marks and raise your hands above your head. And they ask you if your pockets are empty. And it always feels just kind of weird to me.
Very. It always felt very just like invasive.
Right? You're just like posing with your arms all the way up.
Yeah. And I understand the process, or not the process, but like the point of, why they're doing this, but
it's weird.
It's very weird. It's very vulnerable feeling.
Yes. And one thing that the average traveler might not know about this piece of equipment is that it works specifically on a gender binary algorithm. So the way it works is that when you stand in that machine, the TSA agent who's operating it makes a judgment call based on their background and knowledge, which, as we all know, can be just as varied as anyone else's, make their own judgment call on whether or not the person standing in the machine looks like a man or a woman. Then they push that particular button, again, man or woman, just this binary option, on the machine, and an alarm will sound if there are portions of your body that do not align with that generic gender-specific algorithm. If you need a specific example of what that looks like, I'm going to have Rose share with you what happened when we went through TSA last week.
I feel fortunate that this was my first and only experience with this, but I was going through TSA through the little screeny thing, and
technical term.
Yep. And they picked male for me. And so when I went through, my chest lit up, a couple other areas lit up, and I see the 2 agents just look at each other and then look at me. And then I look at the thing that tells me where I'm lit up. And the guy says, what are your pronouns? And I say, they, them. And he looks back at the machine and looks at me. He was like, what are your pronouns? I said, they, them. And then he was like, out of these 2 options, what are your pronouns? And I'm like, okay, sir, you obviously don't understand what you're asking me. But she, just go with she. And he's like, okay. He has me go through the process again, put my hands up, come back out. Everything's fine. I go on my way. But yeah, that was just an odd, uncomfortable experience. And then on the way back, I'm pretty sure they selected male again, and the guy had to pat down my chest. And when he did, he was like, oh. And I was like, mm-hmm.
That's the experience I've had the last few times I traveled. The second part of what you said, where they automatically select male, which for me would be correct.
Mm-hmm.
But
the algorithm doesn't fit
my body.
Yeah.
So they will always go to pat down my chest because it lights up. And every time it's oh. And the funny thing, I guess it's not really funny at all, but about what you just shared is I went through security, maybe 3 people behind you, same TSA agent. And as I'm going through my chest alarms, he goes to pat down my chest and just heavy sighs goes, just go. I was unaware of what had happened with you at that point, and I was like, okay, rude.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like 2 white. I don't even know how else to describe us besides white and queer, but
yeah,
like I feel like there's just so many other experiences that are worse. And there's actually statistics from the 2015 US Transgender Survey that's conducted by the National Center for Transgender Equality that says, as of 2015, 40% of trans and gender nonconforming travelers have experienced a problem at airport security checkpoints for being trans. And this is from 2015, so this doesn't include the last 7 years, especially with the last 2 years having such an increase in anti-trans and queer legislation across the United States. But this, and again, underreporting of statistics, same old soapbox, but 40%, that's almost half. It's sad. And it sometimes is like that, where it's just a miscommunication, uncomfortable pat down, but it can be
so much worse. Yeah.
And I guess all of this being said, TSA is looking into new technology that will include a gender neutral algorithm. So this will help not only trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming travelers, but any traveler who has to go through the system will no longer be subjectively selected as one of 2 things. And this is supposed to be implemented later this year as well. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that and see what happens. But the bottom line, it's exciting that TSA is starting to implement changes to their policies and procedures. They're actually acknowledging and respecting the various gender identities of US travelers and travelers from other countries. And it's exciting, truly relieving. And I know not everyone that's listening can relate to these insecurities and fears while traveling, especially through airport security. So I just wanted to share a few of the things that I think about when traveling through TSA and some things that others have shared with me. And if Rose, anything comes to mind, please chime in as well. But I know for me, the biggest thing I have is, so as of now, my driver's license is outdated. I have not updated my name. I have not updated my gender. I have not updated my picture. So this is obviously something that's on me. I need to do. It's expensive. It takes time. Like I said, you have to take time off work to do it. I've been traveling a lot for work and otherwise, just have not had the opportunity. Anyways, the biggest thing that I love about testosterone so far is my facial hair. And it's something that I leave until it gets so scraggly, I have to shave it off, like this last week before the wedding that I was in. But so when traveling, to feel my most comfortable self, the last thing I want to do is shave my face. But I show up with a driver's license that says I'm a female with a full-on mustache and goatee. I guess it's not full-on, but we're getting there.
It's pretty, yeah.
But my biggest fear is that when I pull down my mask and look at the TSA agent, they take my ID and go, that's not you. And then I get held up for whoever knows how long. And I don't know. I just don't know what that process would be like if they wouldn't accept it. But my biggest fear isn't necessarily that happening on the way somewhere. It's happening on the way back. Like, I just can't imagine being stuck, for this instance, on the other side of the country, a 6-hour flight from here, much longer drive, and not being able to use my identification. And so that, again, is my ID not matching, which is a reality for so many folks. Again, being misgendered in the security line, being patted down in a way that's inappropriate or invasive.
Because I know there's like different ways that they'll pat down, females, quote unquote females to males. And that precaution was absolutely not taken in this case, which is pretty, feels pretty gropey and not good.
Yeah. And there's horror stories online, and
that's one super isolated, minimal experience.
Yes. Yeah. There these horror stories though are of like strip searches and invasive genital searches, and just something I can't speak to firsthand, but let's hope never, ever happens. And so other fears include carrying my testosterone supplies like that through security. I travel with my prescription because of that, but the prescription is on each individual box of each vial of testosterone, not on the actual testosterone itself. And I do need needles and syringes, supplies like that. So I always have that fear of them taking it or treating me differently for it, or some chaotic something, just anything that would not occur if I didn't have to have that with me. And another thing is just pre-planning what to say if anything of this happens, just sitting there having the anxiety swirling. Like Rose can attest to this. I am a pretty great traveler, but when it comes to traveling through the airport, I don't relax till I'm through security.
Yeah.
It feels unsafe, unsettling. It feels like anything could go wrong.
I mean, it's stressful to think about, like, you and your person just being questioned, like,
Yeah.
out of ignorance, essentially.
Yes, especially when it just comes to saying, this is who I am. Let me walk through this checkpoint.
Yes.
Like nothing to hide, nothing wring, not doing anything bad or illegal.
Nope.
Just trying to exist in the world as oneself.
Trying to do a really basic thing. And it's really any ID presentation that you have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously a much more invasive process, but like, even just to buy alcohol or like,
Yeah. To get into some restaurants. And to be quite frank in this moment, this isn't an issue that is solely connected to traveling in airports. A lot of harassment and violence against non-cisgender folks happens in public in any number of places. It could be on the bus. It could be in school, at work. It could be at the grocery store, at the mechanic, hair salon, literally anywhere. The same 2015 transgender survey conducted by the National Center for Transgender Equality shared that over the past year, so in 2015, 14% of trans folks were denied equal treatment or services in public places because staff believed they knew or thought they were transgender and treated them differently. 24% of them were verbally harassed and 2% physically attacked. So that's 14%, 24%, 2%. And to give you some perspective, the percentage of trans individuals who reported one or more of these experiences at the same time is 31%. And this is the unreported amount of folks who openly talked about this in 2015 for this one survey.
Right. Yeah.
It's just sad. Anyway, so the next time you're traveling, just be mindful that some folks around you might be going through some of these insecurities. And this is insecurity based around gender identity. This isn't sexual orientation, isn't race, isn't religion, there's so many other factors that people get discriminated against and mistreated for and harassed. And it's sickening. End rant. So moving on to our next segment, we're going to continue along with our favorite acronym, LGBTQIA+, on the queer alphabet. For those who are unfamiliar, the queer alphabet is a spinoff of my social media education campaign back in 2020 with the same title. This series aims to break down LGBTQIA+ terms and concepts in a way that all people can listen and understand. Last time we talked about the L is for lesbian, and today we're going to talk about G is for gay. And one thing that I think is really interesting is that throughout history, folks have referred to the queer LGBTQIA+ community far and wide using the term gay, kind of like as an umbrella term, while not all of us are gay. And one of the first things I'd like to point out about this term is that it is referring to a sexual orientation. So we aren't talking about gender here. We are purely talking about a form of connection and attraction, romantic or sexual. And we can go into attraction at another point because that's just as diverse and complex. But anyways, someone who is gay or homosexual is attracted to another person or persons of their own sex. When using the word gay specifically, we are discussing the male sex or men that are interested in other men. Now, it's not a binary perspective of men. I want to add that in there. The term gay dates back to the 12th century from the old French word gay, spelled G-A-I, which meant full of joy or mirth. And until the 1600s, it was used synonymously with words like happy and carefree, bright and showy. And then in the 1600s, the term started to morph into this term that implied that a person was carefree in a way that they shed their morals or were more prone to promiscuity. And in those days, the term gay woman would mainly refer to a prostitute, and the term gay man equated essentially what we would call today a womanizer. And so in that same time period in the 1600s, a gay house was a term for a brothel. I think that's really interesting. And there is a record from Scotland in the 1890s that referred to the type of person who was kind of a vagrant floating from place to place that offered sexual services to women or older men. A gay cat, G-E-Y is the spelling of this version, which is believed to designate that that person was sexually submissive in their relationship. And that was any relationship, hetero or homosexual. So really the first time that we've seen any connection to sexuality with the term gay is in Scotland in the 1890s. And the word has continued to develop and evolve over time to mean many things. In 1951, it appeared for the first time in the Oxford English Dictionary as a slang term for homosexual. So 1890s is when it was related to sexuality, and 1951 is the first recorded instance as it being officially coined a term for homosexual. That was not that long ago. Since the 1990s, the term has been used in context to mean stupid, undesirable. An example that you or I or our generation might be more familiar with is the phrase, "that's so gay." I remember growing up in middle school, that's all anyone ever said, "That's gay. You're gay. That's so gay." Which has such a negative connotation, which is so funny because it's literally a descriptor term. Like, you don't have people walking around being like, "That's so lesbian." I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing because I know that this is probably a sore subject for some folks, especially some older generation queer folks who don't even like the term queer. And I'm trying to be mindful of that. But at the same time, it's a term that is not bad, is not negative, and is not dirty. And there's no shame in being gay. I think it's a really prideful, amazing thing to recognize who you are in yourself and to take hold of that and share it with the world. And so if you do or don't identify with the word gay, I just want you to ponder your relationship with the term and what connotation you think of when it comes up. And I ask you to challenge that. Think about it a little more. So moving on to the much awaited recap of the Oh My God Season 3 launch party. This event happened a couple weeks ago here in Seattle at Rose Temple. Thanks again to Austin and Ben from Rose Temple. Such a great venue, great food. Jern's Kitchen is insane. Phenom. Love that. Yeah. Drinks were great. There were alcoholic and non-alcoholic specials. I really love that venue does that and tailors to anyone needing a beverage. I think that that's just inclusive and smart. I want to bring your awareness back to Cheer Seattle for a moment, because one of the things of this launch party was that it was benefiting Cheer Seattle. We had them there doing some performances, doing some cheers and dances and taking pictures with folks and just kind of bringing up the energy. And it was a lot of fun. And Cheer Seattle is a 501c3 nonprofit that raises spirits and funds for the LGBTQIA plus community here in Seattle, and kind of much wider than that. It's an organization that takes money from the community and puts it right back into the queer community. And I think that it's a really cool opportunity too for anyone who has ever wanted to be a cheerleader to come and cheer. It's an all-adult volunteer organization. And it takes all levels of folks, people who have always wanted to cheer and never had the opportunity, or people that have been an all-star cheerleader since they were 3. I don't even know if you could be 3, but very young, you know what I mean? Another part of the launch party that was amazing was we had a DJ Pretty Please. She's fantastic, bringing up the vibes. It was a great playlist. People were jamming all night long. We can't fail to mention the incredible Jeannie Rock.
Incredible performance, as always.
Every time I see her, I'm blown away. And it's like, it just gets more and more. And it's unfathomable. She's just that great.
Yep.
Heard so many great things about Jeannie since that event. And I mean, we already know how great she is. Love you, Jeannie. But it's nice to see that recognition spread. And we're really excited to see you play for Pride this summer and all that is to come. What was your favorite part of the launch party?
I think my favorite part might have been your speech and just all the chatting amongst friends, meeting new people, new networking, and just watching everybody and just have an incredible time.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest parts of the networking, like you said, is that there were people there that were there for the event. There were people there that know us personally. And then there were people there that were there for dinner or there because they love Rose Temple. And it was a great mix. We got to talk to a lot of really cool folks. We had Chasing Charming Photography there. That was amazing too. Some great photos.
Oh, incredible.
I love the queer community and I love building a queer community. And I love that so many people had feedback such as this is Pride came early or this was so safe and comfortable. Those kinds of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recognizing the love of being in queer spaces and just how incredible that can feel. And yeah.
It's a different feeling if you've never experienced it before. I can still vividly remember the first time we ever went to a space where it was entirely queer. And just the comfort.
Yeah.
And we left that event going, oh my God, everyone there could relate to us.
Everyone.
Never ever been in a space where I could relate to all of the people there.
Yeah.
So deeply.
Yeah. It was a very cool experience. And
Wild.
One I think that you helped facilitate.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, we might as well share the speech you were talking about.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rose Temple. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Beau Bradley. My pronouns are he and they, and I'm the host of the Oh My God podcast. So, for those who do not know, Oh My God is a unique insight into queer culture, history, current events, topics, conversation, terms, whatever we can get folks to talk about to share their personal experience and create visibility for the queer community, specifically the trans community, especially as some of you may know, tomorrow is Transgender Day of Visibility. Transgender Day of Visibility was started in 2010 to create awareness for the trans and gender nonconforming community that wasn't just about Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is more about the violence and hardship and not so great things related with being queer and trans. So every year on March 31st, we like to celebrate, and so thank you all for coming out to celebrate. We're also here tonight to support the incredible Cheer Seattle. And so for that, I'm going to turn it over to them to show you for yourselves what they can do.
Incredible. Also appreciated Spencer's speech as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For those who don't know, Spencer is the cheerleading coach for Cheer Seattle. One of my favorite things that Spencer did during this event was get this next clip for you. Thanks for that, Spencer. Love the creativity. And again, thank you to everyone who came out. I don't even know how else to describe the evening besides colorful, fun, great music, great vibes, great friends. Yeah. That being said, it's time for today's affirmation. As you know, we will be ending every show with an affirmation because we often, as queer folks and humans in general, do not give ourselves a chance to feel our full potential, feel empowered, and feel like we are quite enough, especially when we grew up in times and situations where the general society and public was not accepting and understanding of us and where we were coming from. And so we didn't have the opportunity to really feel these things until later, or maybe not even yet, depending on who's listening. And so today's affirmation comes from Pivotal Counseling Center, and it's very short and sweet, but impactful. So get ready to repeat after me. It is a privilege to get to know the real me. Okay, we're going to say this again. Repeat after me. It is a privilege to get to know the real me. JK, it's short. Let's do it one more time and really feel it this time. I want you to feel it. I want to feel you feeling it. So repeat after me. Are you ready? Here we go. Last time, I promise. It is a privilege to get to know the real me. All right, y'all. That is it for this episode of Oh My God. Thank you so much, Rose, for joining us. Thanks for sharing your truth and experiences. It's appreciated as always.
Anytime.
Going to take you up on that. So don't forget to rate, subscribe, and follow along for more of your favorite queer and trans content. We're on most social media platforms at Oh My God Pod. Check us out at www.beaumygod.com, where you can find out more info and purchase some BMG swag like stickers, hats, shirts, some cool things on there. And thanks all. Much love and catch you next time.